What's up YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be calling on you to help me find an apartment. So I have been actually filming some apartment search videos, so you can watch those. I'll link them in the description or up here if you want to look at those. But I did look at around 7 or 8 apartments and I narrowed it down to 4. So that's pretty good if I say so myself. But I'm not sure which one I want to pick. So I need your help in picking the best one. I'm going to go through a pros and cons list that I have on my phone. So if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my phone, looking at my pros and cons list. And I'm going to be talking through all of that so y'all can help me pick the best one. So let's get started. Right, so a little bit of background information. I am from Florida. That's where I am right now. Not that I guess you all need to know that, but I'm going to be living in Maryland, specifically like near Baltimore. Not in Baltimore, but like near Baltimore in that area. And this is going to be my first time living alone in my own apartment. I did have an apartment, sort of. I lived on campus in college. So this is like the first time I'll be living by myself. I'm looking for a one bedroom, one bath apartment. Sorry, one bed, one bath apartment in that area. I'm not looking to spend over like $2,400. Housing can be pretty expensive. So that is something I'm trying to save money on. But let's actually talk about the first complex. So this one is going to be complex 1. I looked at one model in person, and this was 622 square feet for around that 2,100 price tag. So for this apartment, I actually really did like the L-shaped kitchen and the finishes on everything. So they had nice updated appliances, and the actual finishes on the cabinetry and like the handles and stuff like that was really nice. Now, one of the cons for the model that I looked at was that the bedroom was really small, so I really wouldn't have much room. I have room to put put my bed, probably have some nightstands and stuff like that, but that's really all I would put in my bedroom. But that's also all I need. But overall, this model did feel a little small in the living room. I don't know if I would have room to put a desk setup where I can have like my PC and have all my recording equipment and stuff like that. So if I did choose this apartment, I would go one of their other models, which we'll just call V2. And this was 749 square feet for $2,175. So with this model, I would have more space to put my desk, but this model isn't really rectangular. It has more curvature and more corners, which I don't mind, but it isn't really like my favorite. But yeah, if I did do this model, I would have more room. I still will have that same finish and the same appliances from the other unit. That's why I'm mentioning it to you. But some of the cons for this complex was that it didn't have the best amenities. The gym, pretty small. I do want to have like a nice gym if I do want to work out there. If I'm like coming late off of work, I need to get a workout in. I don't feel like going to the gym. I can just pop right down to the apartment gym and get a good workout in. So this one didn't have a good apartment. They didn't have a good gym, and they had a pool table, but it was kind of like connected to their management team. Like it was in the same office area, so I wasn't really messing with that. They don't really have like a game room. They do have a courtyard area, which looked pretty decent in that winter time. But that's really all I can talk about for this apartment. And they also didn't have a garage, so I had to be parking outside. And I'm trying to protect my car from the elements, and that's one of the big things I've been looking for in apartments. But let's actually move on to the second complex. This one was probably like the best looking aesthetically when I did my tours. When I first walked in, it was a lot of glam. It was like a lot of glam and aesthetic. I walked in, there was like this whole like not living area, but area where you could sit down, have coffee. They had some business rooms you could work in that you can rent out, which was really nice. They also had a game room, they had a theater room, they had a golf simulator, they have a screened porch area. They had all the amenities that you would look for in a luxury apartment. So that was a 10 out of 10 for the amenities. But actually, let's talk about the floor plan. I looked at three floor plans, but the only floor plan that I would probably move into right now is their studio apartment, which is 714 square feet. So it's actually a pretty good size for a studio. And they also had like a walled off area for your bedroom, so it wouldn't feel like everything's in one room, which is something I'm not really a big fan of. So if I did choose this one, I have my bed tucked off in the actual living room. It had a lot of light coming in, which is pretty important for YouTube when I'm filming, is having a good light source. So that's something I would appreciate. And it was just kind of like this big space where I could be creative. I would have room to put my TV, my couch, my desk. But the kitchen is kind of like off right to the side, so everything is still right there. But this price was around 2,100, so not a bad price. And all the finishes and appliances were really updated, which I did appreciate. And we had a walk-in shower, so I wouldn't have to worry about cleaning the tub. And it's not like I take a lot of baths. I'm a clean motherfucker, but I don't really take a lot of baths. Just not a big fan. But this place also had a garage and also had like a little like rooftop area where you could grill and stuff like that. So I thought that was really nice. So this complex too was one of the best ones I did look at. That's all really for the pros and the cons. Let's move on to the third apartment. Now this one has actual deal going on. I think it's like $500 off the rent if you move in. So I thought that was pretty nice. I wanted to mention that. I'm looking at two floor plans. The floor plan I toured in the video was 759 square feet, and it had like an L-shaped kitchen, and the cabinetry was also kind of dark. However, the finishes and the appliances weren't as updated as the other two, so I did take note of that. But the actual like living room area did have a lot of space there. I would have room to put my desk set up and have my couch and TV. And they also had like a little walkway to the bedroom and bathroom, which I thought was pretty nice. Like it was kind of disconnected. Not disconnected. It was connected in a disconnected way. I don't think that makes sense, but hopefully the videos and pictures display that properly. But overall, the finishes in the bathroom wasn't really too big of a fan of, like the countertop they had in there. But that's just me. That's not something that's like a big no-no for me. But I did really like all the amenities in this apartment. They had the game room. They had the big gym. They did have the places where you can work, like the business working areas. So they definitely had some pros that I am eyeing, and they also had a garage. So that's kind of why this apartment is ranked pretty high for all the ones I did end up touring. But for some of the cons, I kind of talked about them not having as nice finishes in terms of the like aesthetic and the cabinetry in the kitchen and the bathroom. They also only have like one entrance into the community that feels very locked off. And outside of the apartment, they have like a whole bunch of cars just sitting around, parked in the grass. I wasn't really a big fan of that. But that's really all I can talk about in terms of cons for this community. They did actually have pretty high reviews on Google. But let's go into the last apartment complex that I looked at in the area, which would be Complex 4. So these floor plans were really big. They were like 850 square feet, and that's a lot of space for what I need, but I really did appreciate the space. I'll have plenty of room to put setups and living room stuff that I need. Only thing about these floor plans was that they were on the expensive side. They were like 23 to 2,400, and that's really more than I'm willing to pay. However, if a unit did pop up that was in my range, then I would consider it. It's kind of what I'm saying. But the actual apartment was really nice. They had this white cabinetry that I didn't see in any other apartments, so it just kind of let in more light. It just felt more welcoming and more lively in the apartment, which I appreciated. And the bedroom was pretty big. I had plenty of space. And the kitchen was spacious. And the two floor plans that I looked at, and the bathrooms, they had really nice finishes. It was very aesthetic. It's something I would want to show on my YouTube channel. But like I kind of mentioned earlier, alluded to, was that the con was that it's pretty pricey. It doesn't have a parking garage. It doesn't have the big amenities as the other two have. It has a really small gym. So I wasn't really a big fan of that. But that kind of wraps it up for all the apartments. Hopefully, I was able to actually explain all of the pros and cons for each of them, so you all have enough information and helping me decide which apartment to look at. So just drop a comment down below saying what you thought about the apartments and help me pick the best one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.